The election is not what a lot of people wanted, and the election is exactly what a lot of people wanted. And the election was not what people expected, except the election is absolutely what so many people expected. Were you 100% wrong? No. Were you 100% right? No. No, you weren't. And it's frustrating as all bloody hell. And I'm as frustrated as you are, considering the fact that the nation is clearly in two separate camps. The election was bad and the election was good, whether you like it or not. And not enough people are pointing to things that matter, rather pointing to things that help construct a narrative that isn't based on facts. We got to get into the thing. Welcome to the show, everybody. Great to be with you. Presented by the good people at Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org. Them be the folks. At this stage of the game, it is likely that the Republicans take the House of Representatives. It's not guaranteed at this stage of the game. At this stage of the game, it is possible that Republicans take control of the Senate. It is not guaranteed. And part of the insanity here is that Arizona and Nevada somehow can't count. It's just simply despicable. They should be ashamed and embarrassed of themselves. They won't be. They won't be at all. This was Maricopa County saying, when will we know? Maricopa County is where Phoenix is. It's in Arizona. Well, we'll see.
Again, when do you anticipate the votes will be counted in total, those 400,000 plus votes?
Well, we will be going into next week. There's some onesie twosies, again, pursuant to Arizona law, but I think that we'll see the lion's share here wrap up by early next week.
Okay. Early next week, can you give me a day? Are we talking Monday? Or we
maybe, as long
It's not funny. It's embarrassing and it's sad and it's pathetic and it's weak. We are the United States and we can't count. There's a lot of talk about how Florida figured it out after the 2000 debacle. They made the changes and they got that state of over 20 million people counted in a couple hours. Arizona and Nevada between them don't have 20 million people and they can't do it. And once again, it's Arizona having a problem. And there is absolutely no connection that this White House or the political left has to the idea that this destroys faith in the system itself. Now, not everything is fraud. And screaming fraud is certainly not the answer to the problems. But neither is Joe Biden going out there and saying, oh, democracy, it's now safe.
Good afternoon. Well, we had an election yesterday. And it was a good day, I think, for democracy. And I think it was a good day for America. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. Our democracy has been tested in recent years, but with their votes, the American people have spoken and proven once again that democracy is who we are. The states across the country saw a record voter turnout. And the heart and soul of our democracy, the voters, the poll workers, the election officials, they did their job.
Well, not in Arizona or Nevada. They didn't do their job. Is democracy safe because he did better than expected? Is that the only reason democracy is safe? What happened to the end of times? Now, all of a sudden, all is good and well and easy when you win, but you didn't win. This is where the whole conversation falls so incredibly weird. You didn't win. The odds are you will lose the House of Representatives. Now, by how many is the question, and this is where the whole conversation is heading. There were estimates of 235 seats, 240 seats, 245 seats going to the Republicans. They will be lucky to get 225 seats. That is a hard coalition to keep together to deal with people who may fracture off, who may change, whoever the Speaker of the House may be. They're going to have a very hard time with the wrangling. And I should be clear, I do not think at this stage it's going to be Kevin McCarthy. Why should it be Kevin McCarthy? What leadership was brought to get to really the goal? I put out on social media, and not only do I not retract it, I double down on it. Ronna McDaniel has to go as the head of the RNC. I'm not mad at Ronna McDaniel. I'm saying that she did not do the job. We replace NFL coaches all the time when they don't have winning records over a certain number of years. It's 3 elections. She doesn't have winning records. That's the ball game. You have to go. I don't want to hear about, well, that's not fair. I don't want to hear about, well, special circumstances. I want victory. I want a nation that leaves me alone. I want a nation that doesn't have people like Joe Biden in charge. And I want people who can get the victories, who can move the messages, who can engage properly. And Ronna McDaniel simply can't. I'm not worried about her association with Trump or why she thinks Trump matters. Everybody else who's like all Trump all the time, I'm just pushing them to the side. I'm not anti-Trump, but I'm not going to allow that to be some part of the conversation. You need the House. You need the Senate. You need to win. And Ronna McDaniel hasn't done. And Kevin McCarthy didn't deliver. And neither did, was it Tom Emmer there out of Minnesota? That leadership team did not deliver. And punishment is required. You are not the leaders for what is necessary to come next, which is a serious look at A, candidates run, and B, candidates or races where you focused dollars, focused time, and focused opportunity. Now, there has been this whole radical conversation about candidate quality. Candidate quality matters. Of course it does. But if you take a look at Pennsylvania and you tell me that John Fetterman is a quality candidate, I will laugh at you, even if your name is John Fetterman, not a quality candidate. I was just literally moments before I started this, I was on News Nation with Leland Vittert. We were talking about cryptocurrency, but I was watching some of his conversation about this idea of candidate quality and going through the idea that people voted for Fetterman in the western part of Pennsylvania, where Fetterman outpaced Biden because they felt he cared about people like them, which is exactly how they felt about Donald Trump. It's weird that they would feel this way about a billionaire. I think it's weird that they would feel that way about a guy who clearly is not mentally okay. But they did, because the data says that. It shows that. It goes without question that that's what mattered to them. I find it to be a rather silly thing personally, because I don't vote with my heart, I vote with my head. And I'm not interested in voting for a boyfriend or a husband or a girlfriend or a wife. That's not why I vote for people to elected office. I vote so they will do the job I need them to do, allowing me to have the maximum amount of liberty and that they leave me the hell alone. It's, what can I say? I'm a simple man with simple desires. That's what I vote for. That's what I want. I don't vote on the emotion. A lot of people clearly do. And if emotion is the subject, heart is the subject, clearly Dr. Oz gave them none. Of course, he went shopping for vegetables for a crudité, which is very much like Barack Obama saying, have you seen lately the price of arugula? It doesn't work. It doesn't connect. Candidates who can't connect can't win. So in the conversation of candidate quality, being able to connect matters. Now, I have made the argument that Republicans were far more connective because these conversations about crime and the economy are very, very real. But crime and economy conversations have to be met with policy to do something about them. Has to be met with focus on what to do about them. Now, in my beloved Indianapolis, they voted for the prosecutor for re-election with like 60% of the vote. This is a guy who doesn't prosecute. They re-elected him. Well, it's a city that has a tremendous Democratic registration advantage, and he's a Democrat. Well, that was that. And people do that. Ugly and twisted and sick and beneath them as it is, they do that. And let me be clear. When you vote for somebody because of the letter after their name, it's beneath you, as if somehow you don't have an option. You are nothing more than quite literally a slave to that party. You are not. You have a mind and you are free and you have thoughts and ideas. And it's possible that somebody with a letter after their name doesn't comport with what you think is valuable and necessary. We need to empower people to act upon that. You are not victims. You do not have to do just one thing. But a lot of people feel that way when they're told the only thing that matters is democracy, even though democracy was never in question, and abortion. I bring you The View.
Well, I do think, though, what was terrific is the turnout that we saw by young people.
Yeah.
From the age groups 18 to 29 voted for Democratic House candidates 63% of the time. That's really significant.
Yeah.
And I think what's also significant is, Biden was criticized for not talking about crime, inflation, and immigration. Those are Republican talking points. He had his finger on the pulse of what the everyday American needed. And he explained that our democracy was at stake. And if you look at the exit polls, the two biggest issues, number one, saving our democracy. Number two, women's health care rights.
Yeah. Well, Alyssa,
Let's break this down just a little bit. Young people voting for Democrats is not new. Was it Churchill who said if you're under 40 and vote for Republicans, you have no heart? If you're over 40, you vote for Democrats, you have no brains. Was that Churchill? Let's just give it to him. I mean, the man brought you cigars. He might as well bring you this as well. Okay, he didn't invent cigars. He just made them awesome in the minds of the world. Democracy was never on the table in any real kind of way. Crime certainly was on the table in a real kind of way. Abortion was never on the table in a real kind of way, but inflation absolutely was. When you take a look at data, you'll notice that Republicans won the popular vote. You remember when the popular vote mattered? Oh, those were good times. Those were good times when the popular vote was something people seriously thought mattered. People did turn out, just not enough. I believe the number in New York is that 7 million people didn't vote. 7 million people who could have voted didn't vote. That's why New York still has Kathy Hochul as governor. But note how well Lee Zeldin did there. You're right. Doing well does not mean victory. That's absolutely positively true. But it's part of the good of this election. The things that people like Sonny Hostin will never understand. Because why should they have to? They didn't even win. Right now, the House is looking like it will be controlled by the Republicans. That's a loss. But they don't care because they think it's a win because you didn't get the 235, 240, 245 seats that you were expected to. First, don't ever let me hear the words red wave again. Oh, my dear damn God. Don't you know anything? Politics is an expectations game. If you tell people red wave and you only get this, you lost. And if you're explaining, you're losing. So, it's a double whammy. Just go out there and be victorious. Go out there and tell your story. If you were watching my live stream coverage of election night, and I appreciate it, if you were there, I said in the first 100 days, Republicans have to be putting legislation to Biden's desk. Here's the legislation. Here, America is why it helps you. Here it is, Biden, sign it. Here's the legislation. Here, America is why it helps you. Here, Biden, sign it. If they don't have that for the first 100 days, well, then holy hell, they deserve to lose and will lose for forever. The Republican Party, it is very true. Crime and issues of inflation. Where was the policy? Where was the plan? Well, if we put out a plan, we'll get attacked. You must show people what it is you're doing for them by actually doing things, not just saying, oh, the other guy. It doesn't work that way. The idea that Americans were moved that, if we vote for these people, my gosh, democracy is at stake. If Republicans get the House, isn't democracy still at stake? But no one's talking about that. They've totally eliminated that conversation. They could still lose the House and somehow democracy is still safe. So they decide when democracy is and isn't and how. Does anybody else notice how weird and strange that is? Is anybody else going to notice that in school board races across the country, conservatives did very well? Right here where I live, town just to the east of me, has been really woke central in the schools. That's where DEI first really blossomed in the state of Indiana, and SEL and the wokeness in the schools. And a group got together and they nominated people to run for school boards. And they ran against incumbents and they ran against leftists. And in the 4 seats for school board, the conservatives took all 4 seats. Now, where I live, it didn't work that way. They took 1 of the 3 seats. They had some districts where they had multiple people on the political right running, and they split the vote. So the winner, let's say, got 14,000 votes, but you take the three people together and they got 21,000 votes. Now, it's true, they don't have the seat, but you certainly see where the people were. Is democracy still safe? Sonny? Sonny? Of course it is. It was never the subject. Young people voting for the left is standard operating procedure. Now, this candidate quality conversation comes down to, well, you see, the problem is these Trump-endorsed candidates, well, they all just crap the bed. They just took a big Amber Heard or right on the bed. Was it Amber or was it Johnny? I honestly didn't pay that much attention to the trial because it was super creepy. Trump certainly endorsed candidates and pushed candidates who weren't super great in my book. But it's certainly not all his fault. One can argue the conversation of candidate quality. One can certainly state that that's true on every side. And if the right has to really worry about the quality, but the left, oh, it's quality, you don't even have to question it. Sorry, I'm not playing that game. John Fetterman is not a quality candidate. Katie Hobbs in Arizona running for governor is not a quality candidate. Charlie Crist was never a quality candidate. All right, he got his butt kicked. Yeah, what about Florida? Florida, where Ana Navarro said the game is rigged. Wasn't rigged. They turned Miami-Dade County red. They are now calling it a red state. Am I to take from this election that it's all bad for the political right? Absolutely not. There are school boards and there are states, and these are solid victories that can be built upon. It proves that if you don't go with the status quo and recognize that your citizens come first, you can go very far. It proves that if you don't go with the status quo, you don't care if the Department of Justice calls you domestic terrorists, you want to fight for your kids, you can go far. Those are great lessons that need to be learned and need to be multiplied across the country. More effort and more effort and more effort. Can Trump screw all of that up? Sure. Well, why not? He can screw it up by showing you that he isn't about you, he's about him. Now, I must put a caveat to this. Nothing about Trump shocks me or surprises me. Nothing about how he's angry about the Dr. Oz loss and he's blaming Melania Trump, the former first lady, would surprise me. Yeah, the story came from Maggie Haberman at CNN, the New York Times, but she's also gotten a lot of access to Trump and a lot of access to Trump World and writing the books. I'm willing to, at this stage, believe that he has said this. Don't blame your wife. You look ridiculous. He had put out a musing on Truth Social that, hey, now that the election's over and Florida did very well, is anybody going to notice that I got 1 million more votes than Ron DeSantis in 2020? Shouldn't somebody notice that? That's Donald Trump comparing a midterm to a presidential election. That's a ridiculous thing to do, but that's exactly who he is. It's all about him all the time. Where Trump can become a problem is in this election, for example. Not only are we waiting on Arizona and Nevada, we have a runoff in Georgia. And I'm telling you, I looked at that race and I looked at Ohio and I thought that they were comparable. And I thought there wouldn't be vote counts in a way that would keep Herschel Walker from getting 50% plus one. I looked at it and I said to myself, just like you saw the turn for J.D. Vance in Ohio, you will see the turn and Walker will be able to get over that threshold. I am bothered that that didn't work out that way, that I got that wrong. Now, J.D. Vance, we should note, was supported by Trump, and J.D. Vance won by 7 points against a sitting member of Congress. And you're like, well, I guess that ends the candidate quality conversation. Not if you compare him to Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, who won by 25 points. Why didn't J.D. Vance win by 25 points? I don't think he's the worst quality. I have never been a super big fan, but I've never been angry at J.D. Vance. He hated Trump, and now he loves Trump. Okay, well, that's politics, and a lot of people have done that on every side of the aisle. That's nothing new to you or I. But it does say something interesting when you take a look at those numbers and you take a look at that data. You take a look at that, you're like, there has to be a reason. Kemp wins by 8 points in Georgia, and Herschel Walker can't get over the 50% mark. There's something there. Never mind media attack on media attack on media attack on media attack. But you could argue, okay, maybe that's something worth looking at. Now that we have this runoff, Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock on December 6th, we have to take a look at what it is Trump is doing. Never mind the statements he's made. He's supposed to make this announcement next week that he's running for president. I don't care that he's running for president. People think that this is a big thing. Oh, he's the only guy. We have to have him. No, we don't. What we need are the lessons from Trump on the fighting. But you don't need just one guy. That's messed up. That's idol worship. I don't play that game. Not at all. I don't play it. I'm not interested in it. I think the people who do it are simply wrong. But there's a question about whether or not Trump's going to make that announcement. And some people are saying, do not make the announcement. Wait until the runoff happens. Let me bring you now to this piece from Brian Kilmeade.
I do think President Biden is running, and I don't see anyone out there. I could name, and we've done this on radio, 12 people, talented people on the right that could run for president in the prime of their careers, from Ron DeSantis to Mike Pompeo to the Vice President of the United States to Governor Kristi Noem to Governor Nikki Haley. I can't do that on the left. So that's how we got the job in the first place. There was no alternative. Now, with President Trump, I would think the first indication I would look for to see if he was serious about being savvy and recalibrating is if he puts off his announcement Monday. If he puts off his announcement Monday, it's putting team first. If he takes his announcement Monday, that'll show that it's so Trump-centric, it's going to be playing to the DeSantis or broad scope, the big jungle primary.
Will Trump delay? Now, I will tell you that I think that Trump's attacks on DeSantis are just silly. And some people have suggested that Trump getting into the race early clears the field. No, it doesn't. That is political neophytism. You think that Ron DeSantis is worried about whether or not Trump declares early? Ron DeSantis, and I've made this point on my radio show for the past week, going into last week, Ron DeSantis doesn't have to do anything but run Florida. He doesn't have to answer a question. He doesn't have to pay attention to it. Just run Florida. That's all you have to do. He can get into this race anytime he wants and change the race like that. How do I know it? Miami-Dade. That's how I know it. That's how you know it. And that's how Trump knows it. Trump may want to delude himself, and his team might try to delude him, that if he gets to the race early, he clears the field. He might clear it of Rubio and Cruz, but Rubio and Cruz aren't factors in this election. He doesn't clear it from DeSantis or Abbott or Pompeo, and he's not going to clear it from a lot of other people who realize a year from now, oh yeah, this ain't the same guy. Because no one ever is the same guy. Now are they? Trump could play spoiler, and I can't afford spoiler. I need Trump to play team player and get control of the Senate. It'll do him much better if he does it. Will he? 50-50. Because Trump's about Trump. And that's, well, what we know as fact. I'm not even angry about it. I know what it is. I knew what it was when I voted for him in 2016. I said, I've got a 50-50 shot with Trump. I have zero chance of getting anything I want with Hillary Clinton. Of course I went with Trump. Worked out pretty good for Tony. Worked out pretty good for America when we talk about policy. Hasn't worked out well when we see Joe Biden and we see the inflation and we see the crime and we see this idea from leftists that somehow those things don't matter. They're Republican talking points. They're not real. That's just weird. That's just weird. And the vote totals in terms of turnout, if indeed all these things hold and Republicans won the popular vote, show that people were engaged, but maybe not enough. And maybe not enough people came out. And certainly you can argue that's the case in New York. There is good in this election and bad. Just is. But there's no doubt that Republicans are disappointed in what they saw. And for that, I go back to the beginning. Heads have got to roll. If heads don't roll, this party is unserious, whether you like it or not. Let me go to the comments right here. I always love a good comment, my people. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you guys doing the thing. Let me see here. Mike, yes, Trump shouldn't be a distraction, but a uniter of the Republican Party, which isn't his normal want. Now is it? I must say again, I'm not particularly angry with the dude because I just don't get particularly angry. I want him to do what I need done, which is, I think, different for a lot of people. I've made this argument as well. I don't work for Trump. Trump works for me, and I don't owe Trump anything. Trump owes me. I'm the voter. I'm the citizen. He wants the job. You do what I want done. You're not willing to do it. You get in the way. You're out. I don't even think that's just the most rational thing in the world. I'm the voter. I'm the guy in charge. We the people, that's me, and that's you. We decide. We decide. Anthony wants to know if democracy is safe. It doesn't seem like it has been for some time now. Your point's taken, man. Your point right there is taken. William was watching Rumble during the elections. I appreciate you watching it. The Leaf by Oscar is a fun cigar. It really is. I think it's a very simple smoke. I think it works for most times of day, most events. I like it. I like what they put together there. It has enjoyed a nice, steady level of popularity. I haven't run into really anybody who's like the Leaf. I wouldn't smoke that. Everyone's like, ooh, fun cigar. Fun cigar. Here's Freddie. When a state takes this long to get votes counted, do they send people there to figure out why the votes are not counted and why it's taking so long? Well, what do you mean? Send people like from the federal government? Gosh, I hope not. Gosh, I hope not. By the way, another funny thing about Florida, DeSantis wouldn't let in people from the federal government to monitor anywhere. Yeah, amazing how things worked out. Didn't allow any of that nonsense. And look at the results. Amazing. No, the federal government does not send people in. It's up to the state to do it right. I want the states in charge of the elections of their state. I just want them to be good at it. And when you take Arizona and Nevada, you won't know until Monday. This is when people scream fraud. It's when people scream this isn't right. And they're right to scream it because, man, it's ugly as sin. This is Robert. What's up there, Rob? Age of the voter often resulted in whether they voted Democrat or Republican. I found that very interesting. Of course it does. The older people get, the more responsibilities they have, the more taxes they pay. They're like, wait a second, this idealism is ridiculous. It's 100% true. 100% accurate right there. I've covered a bunch there, and I appreciate so much the comments. Guys, I got to run. Tomorrow, I think we got cigars and solutions. We're going to do that. So we're going to smoke and we're going to figure things out. If you ask me if I'm deterred, the answer is no. I'm perturbed, but I'm not disturbed. I got work to do. We got things to do. And I know that there was good in this election, and I want to capitalize on that. School board wins? Yeah, that stuff matters. Don't ever dismiss the local. I appreciate you guys being here, being a part of the show, presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org. And don't forget, head on over to Locals. Locals is where I'm at, TonyKatz.locals.com. I'd appreciate it if you became a subscriber. I really and truly would. I'm out of here, guys.